At number 17, the worst building in the game is the Barbarian Hut. It is just simply too expensive at 6 Elixir, too vulnerable to spells like the Poison, the Earthquake, and even the Fireball, and it's hard to make it work in just about any deck in the game, so I think this card definitely needs either a buff or a rework or an evolution in order to be viable. Next up, the second worst building in the game is the Evolved Goblin Drill. Now, this is actually the only building in the game where you are better off using the regular version over the evolution because you want to use 2 other evolution slots inside of your drill deck because the Evolved Drill doesn't get more value than the regular drill in most circumstances ever since they removed that death damage it gets when it respawns. It is just so easy to counter and doesn't do very much. The next building is going to be the regular Goblin Cage. The standard version just simply doesn't get very much value at all. It's in kind of niche decks. You pretty much can only run it in recruits, but a lot of recruit decks don't even play it, and it's just practically useless against air decks as well, so it's very matchup dependent, and it just doesn't have a lot of health, the cage itself, and I think the main purpose of it is using it kind of for the brawler and not even the building of it. Which brings us to the regular mortar, and kind of like the regular Goblin Cage, the standard version just simply doesn't get that much value with all the tanks in the game. It's relatively easy to keep this thing off of your tower because it shoots slower compared to the evolved mortar. You're also not getting that goblin, and with spells like earthquake, it is just overall pretty easy to deal with and also break through without that extra firepower from that goblin that comes out. Next is going to be the Elixir Collector. At 6 Elixir, it's pretty expensive and risky to play because if you play against an Earthquake, for example, it is basically useless and getting no value the whole match. 3 Musketeers are also not in a great spot and haven't been for a long time, but with the upcoming Golem buff, maybe that'll help revive Elixir Collector a little bit, but until then, it's definitely not really that good besides the occasional Pumpo deck you might see or some off-meta bridge spam decks. At number 12, we got the Tombstone. This one has fallen off quite a lot. It used to be one of the better buildings inside of the game, but now for the most part, it's pretty much only being played inside of Lava Hound decks because a lot of graveyard decks nowadays prefer to run other buildings like the Goblin Hut, for example, or the Evolved Cannon, so you pretty much only see it inside of one deck, and even some lava decks don't even play the Tombstone, and they might want to run instead Barbarians or Evolved Valkyrie, and they don't even have a building, for example. Next is going to be the Inferno Tower. Now, I don't think it's necessarily that bad, but the issue is there's just better options. In bait decks, a lot of people just tend to prefer something like a Cannon or a Tesla, which is going to be cheaper and easier to cycle. And then there's also all those resets in the game, like the Evolved Zap and the Lightning, which are pretty prevalent in the meta, which is why the Inferno Tower is pretty much only going to be viable in some bait decks and maybe a Goblin Drill deck here and there, but other buildings are going to be better in those decks most of the time. At number 10, we got the Tesla. Now, most people running the Tesla are running the Evolution, of course, and you have to use the standard Tesla a couple times to get to the Evolution, but even the regular version is not half bad in a couple of decks. The standard version still gets a lot of value in some situations inside of Expo decks, maybe a Hog deck, maybe inside of a Goblin Drill deck, and of course it's nice to have that air counter because it directly hits air unlike some other buildings, so it's going to be a nice way of countering things like the balloon, for example. At number 9, we got the Evolved Goblin Cage. Now, this is much better than the standard version, which is pretty much why everyone running it has the evolution and not just the regular cage, because inside of recruits or maybe something like E-Giant or Graveyard, this is where it's actually going to get value, especially against tanks, but I do think it's a little bit inconsistent and very matchup dependent. That's the problem, because against an air deck or a cycle deck, it's basically doing nothing, but against heavier decks, it gets a ton of value, so it's very matchup dependent, which is why it's not super high compared to some of the other buildings. At number 8, we got the Bomb Tower. Now, this building has gotten a lot better recently, especially with the popularity of Loon Cycle Rising, where the bomb tower absolutely thrives in because it's really nice to have that splash damage that you're getting when a bunch of things are clumped together and you're kiting those units together with the help of something like an Ice Golem, for example. And then it also pairs very well with the Tornado, which is why you sometimes see it with Wall Breakers, Magic Archer Tornado. You could also make it work inside of some graveyard decks, and I just think it's a very good option if you're looking for a building that deals splash damage. Next up, we got the regular cannon. I think even the regular cannon is an above average building, even without the evolution, which is why there's actually a few people using just the regular cannon and they don't even have the evolved version. They're choosing to use a couple other evolutions. That's rare because, of course, the Evo cannon is very broken, but you still see that sometimes because for only 3 Elixir, it's very cheap and getting a lot of value, even against tanks. It's very versatile. You can use it inside of bait, you can use it inside of hog, royal hogs, Goblin Drill, E-Giant, Graveyard, so a large variety of decks, and even without that bombs dropping, it is still getting a lot of value. At number 6, we have the Expo. Now, of course, a couple of things have definitely really helped this building recently, like the Evolved Tesla buff, as well as the Arrows nerf, which really helped the Evolved Archers, but we can't deny it has actually proven to be one of the best win conditions in the game. Recently, it has so much outplay potential as well. You can outplay pretty much every single matchup in the game if you have the right support cards with your Expo and you know how to play correctly. And not even just 3.0 Expo, 2.9 has made a little bit of a comeback with the recent Ice Golem buff, as well as some people running Ice Bow with the Ice Wizard and the Tornado. So definitely a solid building at this point in the game. At number 5, we got the regular Goblin Drill. Like I said, this thing is better than its evolution, which is hard to believe, but the regular Goblin Drill has made a really big comeback recently, especially with all the buffs the Evolved Snowball has gotten, which pairs so well with the Goblin Drill because you send in the Goblin Drill and then you just Evo Snowball everything back and it ends up getting a ton of damage. This is kind of an interesting one because it's kind of like a troop inside of a building in a way, but of course the main aspect of it is a building. You can also use it defensively as well when you're in a pinch, maybe when defending something like an Electro Giant or a Balloon. So not just on offense is this thing very good, it is also very good on defense when you need it, which is why I definitely think it's a top 5 building in the game. At number 4, we got the Evolved Mortar. This thing is way better than the regular Mortar, which is pretty much why everyone running it and having success with it has that Evolved version that you get after a couple cycles, because you're getting that Goblin, which just provides you significantly more value, and it's not even only good on offense, you can use it defensively as well, and because you're getting that Goblin, it helps you defend so much whenever you're going in for a defensive mortar and there's a very big push coming in. The Evolved Skeleton Barrel has definitely made this evolution a lot better because it was kind of falling off a bit, and then they added the Evolved Skeleton Barrel, and then just like that, it became by far one of the best buildings in the game again, especially the evolution form. At our top 3 now, we got the Goblin Hut. Ever since they did the rework, it has just been so much better and finally viable again as a building. And even though they gave it that hit points nerf, it has still remained to be one of the best buildings in the game, which is why it's so strong, especially inside of graveyard decks. It is absolutely obnoxious. And even if your opponent has a poison, you can end up baiting a poison, then using something else that they don't then have the poison for, and it's just an endless Spear Goblin spawn whenever troops get close that you can use for a counter push. It's also going to be very solid inside of E-Giant and things like that, and also minor wall breakers, so you got enough variety of decks you can use it in. At number 2, we got the Evolved Tesla. This is definitely way better than the standard Tesla. Ever since they increased the pulse damage that it deals, it has made a big return, and it is by far one of the best buildings inside of the game. It pretty much single-handedly revived Expo to put it in a good spot that it's in now. It's also very good with things like the Goblin Drill inside of bait decks. A lot of people might prefer running it over the cannon for extra air support. It's just great to have that stun, so you're able to stop pushes right in their tracks, especially when paired with other cards. It really does seem like there's nothing able to break through an Evolved Tesla sometimes. And lastly, guys, probably no surprise to anyone, without a doubt, the best building in the game by far is the Evolved Cannon. I mean, you're just getting bombs falling from the sky, and it just seems like the longer the match goes on, the more value it gets, because in Double and Triple Elixir, there's just so many things going on in the map at once. You can use it with your pushes on offense, too. If you're sending in a Hog, maybe you want to take out something like a Goblin gang, for example. It's very versatile. You can use it in Hog, Royal Hogs, Goblin Drill, E-Giant, Graveyard. You can use it in cycle decks, but then also control decks, beatdown decks as well. And I think this card, definitely the evolution, needs a little bit of a nerf in my opinion. That's going to be it for my list. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. You can use creator code BOSS to support me in any Supercell game. And thanks again until next time, guys.